Hi, I'm Rachel from Sweetthorn. Welcome to my latest embroidery update. I'm teaching myself new embroidery techniques and I've started to learn about Petit. It's been a bit longer than usual since my last update because I've been working on videos for my new blog. I've put a link in the description if you want to check it out. In my last video, I was getting all set up with my first ever Petit project. You can see that the silk gauze is very fine, 48 holes per inch. I made a mistake in my last video because I thought it was 40 holes per inch, but it's even finer than that. I stitched the gauze onto a larger muslin square and then mounted it in a 4-inch hoop. Once I got started, I had to swap the muslin for linen because it was too thin to adjust in the hoop and I couldn't keep the gauze tight. I made a chart to work from, so the next thing to do was get started. Petit is usually worked with silk threads because they're so fine. As I'm just getting started, I'm sticking with DMC floss for now. When I have a better handle on the technique, I'll try a silk version. Once I started, I took a while to practice tent stitch and to work out how I want to secure my thread. Leaving a long thread was quite tricky, so I made the tail shorter and stitched carefully until the thread felt secure. I started with a line of 10 stitches to see how it looked. I started in the middle of my design so I knew where I was, and then started working out how I was going to stitch the white petals. I started filling the rows horizontally, leaving gaps where I'll use a different colour. I started making notes of how many rows to stitch and where the gaps fall, which has been helping me keep my place. Counting the tiny holes is obviously super tricky. My pocket magnifying lamp is just out of shot, but it sits in front of the hoop. It takes away the strain of working on such a small scale. The top of the Snowdrop was a bit fiddly, with smaller details, but it's mostly been easy to follow the chart and keep count. Managing the thread ends has been a bit tricky with such close stitching. As I'm using a hoop stand, I can't turn the piece over frequently and secure the ends of the thread by stitching them into the design at the back. When I start a piece of thread, I stitch carefully until it's more secure, although this might account for some of the discrepancy in tension. At the moment, I leave finished threads dangling until they interfere too much with stitching. Every now and then, I remove the hoop and turn it over, and tie knots in the threads so that I can cut them short. Whenever I work with Petit again, I can work on making the reverse much neater. I've accidentally snarled up the thread here and there as well. I'm still happy that this is all part of the learning curve, and I can make a note of what to keep an eye on for the next time. Speaking of mistakes to avoid, as I've been concentrating on counting threads, I've not kept the tension of my thread even, so the design looks rather bumpy. This is all part of the learning curve with the new technique. Someone mentioned that they stitch grids onto their gauze so that they have blocks of 10 or 20 holes marked out. I don't want to add an extra element at the moment, but I would try this technique another time to see if it helped me concentrate on thread tension more easily. Another thing which looks more obvious is that embroidery floss collects lots of tiny dark fibres. Filling an area with so many close and tiny stitches makes the occasional dark fibre stand out, and the overall effect can be a bit grey. I've been using a tweezer to take out fibres as I go, and I'm going to check over the piece now and again to clean it up. This sort of thing might be another reason why silk is a more practical choice than cotton for Petit, and I will try a silk project another time. I agree with one Petit stitcher who mentioned that even on such a tiny scale, mistakes look really obvious. But I'm also really happy that a Snowdrop is slowly emerging from the process of meticulous counting and leaving gaps. The white petals are shaping up well now. I'm impatient to see how the design works when I start adding colours, particularly for the areas where the petals overlap and I'm trying to suggest shading. I hope I can create a subtle look. I already think I might have to make adjustments as I stitch, but I don't think it will be too hard. I feel like those could be famous last words, but I'll give it a go. That's as far as I've got for now. I'm hoping to get the white finished by the next update, and hopefully that's a realistic goal. My first Petit point video is about preparation and getting set up, if you'd like to take a look. I've listed all my equipment in the description with some links, and there's a link to my newsletter as well. Please give this video a like and subscribe to my channel if you want to find out how I get on. Thanks very much for watching. Bye for now.